Hi, this is Keith Overholt coming to you with another podcast of Stories of Hope. We are at the Downtown Rescue Mission where we see thousands of lives through the years that have been changed. And we are doing a podcast now that describes a little bit about what we do and talks about the stories and the things that have happened here and how lives have been changed. Today I have with me my friend Kirk Thompson, and he is a longtime friend of mine, and also is a friend of the mission for many years. And Kirk, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So you have been around the mission even when you were a little kid, right? So just describe a little bit about how the mission maybe started, because you know a lot about that, and tell us how you got involved.
Well, the mission is nearing its 50 years. It started back in 1975.
There's no way you're 50 years old, Kirk. I'm telling you.
I've aged well. No, it's seen a lot of time, a lot of people that have come through. I think it's funny. People always wonder why it's downtown rescue mission.
Right.
We're not located in downtown or near it, and haven't been for many years. But the original location was off of Clinton Avenue downtown. It's now a parking lot.
Yeah.
But it used to be a service station, a gas station that had been abandoned, and was kind of retrofitted and repainted and dressed up to turn into a homeless shelter. Dad worked with getting things painted, fixed up. Some of the homeless people that would sleep in the alleys in the downtown area would come by and want to know what he was doing. And they would, he would tell them they're fixing a rescue mission, a place where they could come eat and sleep. Ultimately, the goal was to share the gospel. Yeah. That old fella said, it was about time somebody noticed us.
Wow.
And they would come and help him paint and work on it. And the very first night when it opened, there was people that lined up and came in, and we've never been empty of beds since. Yeah. There's always been people sleeping in beds and being fed at the rescue mission.
So what year was that first happened?
That was in 1975 is when it was officially incorporated and had a location to call its own on Clinton Avenue.
Yeah. So you talked about your dad. That's Bernie Thompson, who was also a very good friend of mine. Talk a little bit about your dad and maybe how he got involved with the mission.
Well, you know the old story. It was actually in 1974, my brother Kyle and I were wrestling. He was supposed to be babysitting. He's 9 years older than me, so I was about 4 years old. And he knocks a leg out from underneath me, and I do the splits one time, and I break my leg.
Oh.
And back in those days, when you get to the hospital, they kept your leg in traction even though it's in a cast. And somebody had to stay there with me as a little child, throughout the nights. So Mom and Dad would stay up there. Their good friends, Bobby and Elena LaCroix, would help stay there. And while they were there, they'd noticed at nighttime a lot of homeless people would come to the emergency room just to get basic things like looking for food or wanting somewhere to sleep. So Bobby LaCroix and my dad, they were good friends. He convinced me and said, we need to start some sort of rescue mission. Of course, Dad said, well, I don't know what a rescue mission is, and I really don't think we have that much homeless.
Yeah.
So Bobby took him into the woods, into the downtown alleyways, and showed him where the homeless were. And so they started carrying food just in the trunk of their car to help meet their needs where they were, always sharing the gospel, carrying Bible tracts and talking to them about need for a change in their lives, and that need being Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And so that was always the foundation as to what started the idea of the Downtown Rescue Mission, is to feed and help the homeless, but ultimately minister to that spiritual need that would create lasting change.
Yeah, I always talk to my staff and the board about really the meals are great that we serve, and the shelter we provide is great, but really the ultimate reason we're here is about sharing the gospel. Those things are almost like a fisherman having a hook out to bring people in. But then when we get them here, we were going to share the gospel by classes and teaching them, or even in chapel services. And because really the ultimate goal is that we're not just helping them for today, we're helping them for eternity. And that's an exciting thing for me, and I know it is for you as well.
Well, and you've said it many times as well. If it wasn't for the opportunity to share the gospel, there's not much incentive to just give meals and showers to people. We want to
Yeah.
see lasting life change and it make an eternal difference in
Yeah.
somebody.
So your dad was one of the founders. Talk a little bit about your dad, and um, he passed a couple years ago, and like I said, he was a really good friend to me, and also a mentor. And when I was getting my MBA, I actually met with your dad for about 5 hours one day, just asking him questions about how he started his business. Talk a little bit about your dad and the business that you guys had, and really how that allowed him to help really at the mission, which was one of his passions.
Right, and with the mission that started in 1975, it started very small. So Dad and Bobby LaCroix were very active in a lot of the work to be done, of just getting things going to figure out and go down this road. Dad, he worked all the time with a job that paid, and everything he always did with the rescue mission was volunteer. But he's always driven.
Yeah.
You've seen that
Oh, yeah.
in him, and it's one of those things that he always had the phrase, you always come down on the side of right, that you have to do right by people and treat people in the right way. And so the whole idea of helping people with the rescue mission, since he felt blessed in his life, he wanted to share and give that opportunity to others.
Yeah.
So that just permeated everything that he did, and I think that's why he was a success with his business and doing plastics processing, because he always had that mentality of doing right by customers and employees.
Yeah. And not to leave your mom out, your mom was a big part of it too. I have many pictures of probably 76, 77, where your mom's cutting meat, getting ready to prepare a meal, or they're folding putting papers in envelopes to send out to make sure people knew what was going on at the mission. But your mom and dad owned a business that was Thompson Plastics. Talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, we made it was plastic pipe and fittings used for hot and cold running water. The business uh, started out in like 1982. Dad had been involved in plastics before then. Relatively new to the market, so it had a lot of growth to do on its own. But again, his mindset was to work and work hard at it, to make sure it would grow and succeed. And I think God favored him in the work that he did, because it did grow and be a success. And as it grew through the mission, he found an avenue to help share and help meet the needs of others as well.
The mission was a big passion for both your parents, I know, and sorry that we've lost them the last couple of years, but like I mentioned, your dad, he and I would go to lunch often, and he would just feed into me on, hey, I'd bounce a business idea off on it, or talk about new ministry we're going to start, and he would always give me good feedback. And like you said, he said to me when I was dealing with staff or a business idea, hey, if you do it the right way, the Lord's always going to bless it. Mm-hmm. And I really, that was one of the big things that he always said to me is, Keith, when you do it, make sure you do it right. Because if you don't do it right, it's not going to be blessed. And boy, that always resonated with me. And so that's one of the things that we've always tried to do here at the mission. So your mom and dad were very involved. And then, a few years later, you got involved. Your dad had you and I go to lunch one time. I had met you before, but we went to lunch and with your brother, and really you and I kind of hit off a friendship. But at that point, you really got more involved in the mission. Talk about your journey in the mission.
Dad had gotten on up in years, and I think he knew that he was stepping back from a lot of the work he had done at business as well as with the rescue mission. He suckered me in. He said he wanted to retire from the board of directors and wanted me to take his place.
Yeah.
I think that was a little bit so he could still have a finger on the pulse of how things were going.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, you and I did strike a friendship there early on, and it was fun coming onto the board and seeing a little bit more of the activities that go on.
Yeah.
It's things that happen here that people just don't see, they don't understand. it's difficult when the general public encounters people out at a parking lot that is looking for a handout, and they have the story of they either need gas, need food, have some sort of need, and looking for that couple of dollars, $5 just to get by.
Yeah.
I always tell people, I say, you can give them the money to help them, or you cannot. It's whatever works well with your conscience. But the big thing that they need is what we have here at the rescue mission. And I always tell them, encourage them to come to the rescue mission, where they find hope. They find an opportunity for something real and something more lasting than what that $5 can get them.
Yeah.
And so, that's the great thing that the mission has to offer and has continued to offer, and it's been wonderful seeing that.
Well, and I recommend to people, and I've been in rescue work with 3 different missions over a 30-something year period now, that when somebody comes to you, it's about 95% of the time that story that they're telling you is probably not the exact truth, and that money that you're giving them is really going to enable them to continue down the path of homelessness or addiction, or because what they're using that money for is not what they're telling you. And it's either going to a bottle or maybe some drugs, or, again, keeping them homeless. And so, like you said, I always recommend for people to say, hey, listen, I don't have them bring them down themselves, but hey, will you go down to Downtown Rescue Mission? Because there's a place that you can really find hope. And we've had a lot of stories of hope here for sure. But so you've had a unique story here at the mission. You really started out as a donor. Your dad asked you to come along and started giving to the mission, and you felt like there was a passion there for you because you saw what was happening. Then you became a board member. You even served as president of the board a couple times, and but then you became a staff member. And
Yes.
so talk about that time here, because you got to see front line of what happens on a day-to-day basis. Not just from the board's perspective, which is more of a 100-yard view, but you got to see day-to-day what happens.
It is different. Being on a board member, there's that bit of shelter as you're only down here for periodic meetings.
Yeah.
Being on the staff, the staff here have a whole different level of work and activity, being on the front lines with the issue of homelessness. Many people don't know we do have a 12-month recovery program. It's to try to break the cycle of addiction and homelessness through the gospel, through the power of Jesus Christ. Yeah. And you start to invest in men and women in that program, seeing progression that is made, and then sometimes pressures of life get onto these individuals, and sometimes they'll have a relapse, they'll fail, they'll drop out and quit. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. Because you're wanting them to succeed, you're cheering them on and trying to motivate, knowing that every bit of the steps they have to do is on their own. Yeah. And I always call it grace-driven effort. They've got to have Jesus Christ empowering them in that step and in that process. And like any of us, they get a little bit of the doubts overwhelming them. Yeah. So that's tough. I mean, if there's anything that I say that, obviously the Downtown Rescue Mission always needs donations to help keep lights on and salaries paid. But the staff needs prayer. Prayer to be strengthened and encouraged to continue to go through that, to keep their eyes focused on Christ, to keep pointing others to Him, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Some of the stories that are told, true stories of these folks that are being counseled here at the mission, people wouldn't realize how devastating some of those stories are, and it wears on some of our counselors that they're like, man, I can't believe that. And then you have the other side. You see the success where we have the graduates, but you also sometimes see people that say, hey, you know what, this isn't for me. And boy, those are tough to see because, like you said, there's a lot of investment by the staff that they put their lives and their energy and their love into these folks, that sometimes when they fail or when they, fall off the wagon, boy, it breaks our heart just as much as it does anybody else because they put so much time and effort into it. The great thing about the mission, though, is that we are a place of second chances, third chances, fourth chances. And what that means is if somebody needs to come back, we're able to take care of them. And there's sometimes that we even offer other programs. Maybe this isn't the right program for them. we've taken people up to Nashville or to Birmingham to some of the rescue missions there that have different programs. But I know that you saw it firsthand that there's sometimes it just breaks your heart.
There is, but and that's why I said the encouragement that the staff needs to keep that going, is critical. The other fun part about being on the staff was the classes that are taught here for those in the recovery program. It's a lot of deep material. I mean, this is not just a general Sunday school class, and you don't sit around holding hands and singing Kumbaya.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. Deep classes on prayer and experiencing God and knowing God's voice and His will for your life. Yeah. People that go through this 12-month program come away with much more deeper understanding of who God is. You know the statistics better than I do to say if somebody completes the program, they have a great percentage of success of not falling back into relapse. But I don't remember the number.
So if they go through the program and graduate that last step, the success rate right now is about 74%, which is amazing because if you look at like Alcoholics Anonymous or some of those programs, they're in the 20% range. And so when somebody's graduated, and what that means is somebody's gone at least 2 years past our program. They're not homeless. They have a church. They have a job, a car, all that stuff. And for us, that's the thing that we want. We want to see success. Here's the other thing. I've seen some folks go through our program and maybe didn't find success in their life, but I know that we still share Jesus with them. And I want them to be successful in this life, but man, I want that eternal security forever. And that's really what our goal here is to make sure that people, of course, find Jesus and that's what we point them to. And that's why I think our program is so successful is because it is very Christ-centered. And not just that, but it is, I always say at graduation, it's like going through 1 year of Bible school. I mean, it's intensive. And so when the guys come out of there, we give them a Bible and they have, the study Bible we give them is, about $100 Bible that they get that's, church supplies for us, which is a great partnership that we have. But when they leave here, they've got to have a job and a church and hopefully a mentor that's with them. And so I love seeing what our program does because the success is awesome. So when you were here, was there one specific story or person that you came across that touched your heart the most?
Well, I won't go around naming names, but there's been several that I saw, and the real trick or the key, I guess, is when you see somebody going through the program that they've quit focusing on themselves, that they got concerned about the others that were around them. That means that they no longer have, as our pastor says, inward eyeballs. They don't think everything's about them. They've given up the victim mentality of what's happened in their life, and they realize there are others around them that have struggles as well. And then they're encouraging and motivating others through the program along with them. That is one of those keys to success or marks to say that they're getting it. They're realizing that they've got to help, be a beacon and shine the light of Christ to others and help them continue on the path as well. And I think those voices speak loud because they've walked the same walk as those around them. Yeah. And when they can offer that encouragement, it does an awful lot.
Was there a particular guy, you don't have to say their name, was there a particular guy or girl that you came across that just kind of touched your heart while you were
there were several. We've had issues. That one of the big challenges as people go through the program, they either have different fines and penalties to where they don't have a license to get a car, and they need a car to get to a job, but yet they need the job to get the money to pay the fees for everything to get it started. They're in this catch-22. Yeah. But we had one fellow that was in that spot, and I told him, I said, we're going to work through this. He had the opportunity to work at a thrift store, so he had transportation to get a job and get to a job and get money.
One of our thrift stores.
Correct. Yeah. Which is one of those side benefits of getting to go through the program, that they have an opportunity for employment to start breaking that cycle.
That's right.
So we took this as a matter of prayer and step. I said, look, you don't need to worry about a car because you can't have a license because you haven't paid your fine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take this and start first and get your fines paid off. He worked and got his fines paid off. And I said, all right, now it's time for the license. Never had a license before.
Wow.
Always been driving illegally. I want to say he was 13 years old, and they suspended his license, gave him a license number so they could suspend it. And he never took care of this. So we helped him study because he had to take the written test and then do the driving test. I said, the driving test is no problem. You've been doing that all along.
Yeah.
So we worked on the written test. You would not believe the 40-something-year-old man coming in with a learner's permit.
I bet.
Smiling ear to ear about how proud he was he'd gotten to that point. I said, okay, we're not stopping. Next thing's the driving test. Let's get that done. He said, but I still don't have a car. So I'm going to keep it in prayer. Yeah. He went and took his driving test, and when he came back, it was less than a week. We had somebody that wanted to donate a car because they had one car too many at home. And lo and behold, here he was ready to get a vehicle that was given to him. So you see God move in these lives and work through. And if you're faithful in the little things, taking the steps forward, God is going to be there along with them to guide him as he goes along.
And we see God's hand here all the time, not just in the lives that are changed, but the things that have happened at the mission. You've been associated with the mission since its founding. I mean, thank you for breaking your leg. We appreciate that. And thank you for your brother breaking it. You know, I've got to make sure that I talk to Kyle and thank him for that.
He's offered to break another one if you need it, but I've run away now.
Now, we can't start another mission, though. We got to keep it here. But, yeah, but over the years, have there ever been something that you've really seen God's hand move that just was an awesome testimony? Not even just in the people's lives, but something that's happened here at the mission that just was like, man, I love this mission because I see just God's hand moving.
Well, it happens, it happens daily here that I don't see. When being here on the staff, you got to see a lot more of that and being steeped in it. The amazing thing when I got to work here with you is when we started building Owen's house for the women and children. And we built that to double the capacity. And it became, again, another one of these beacons into the community that women with children that are homeless, and which is a hard thing to think about, they had a place to be able to go that is safe, to get out of bad situations, to be separated from the men's facility so that they knew that they were secure there. And then that thing fills up within a 6 to 9 month time frame. And we doubled our capacity. That means that a lot of the things that we're doing here is meeting needs. And people are out there and they have a lot of needs to be met. And then that means that the gospel's being shared with each one of these that come through the door. So I just see that as to how God is continuing as to what God had done as starting out back in 1975, that we've always had somebody sleeping at the mission, somebody always fed. Not a day has gone by where we haven't had somebody come to be housed and fed and the gospel be shared.
Yeah, being on the board with me and then working side by side, that one of my angsts was, oh man, the men and women are in the same building, only with a padlocked door, in between the men's side and the women's side. And I think I talked to you often about that. I'd go home and pray, Lord, just please protect the mission and those who are in there. And he did until we got the building built, which now they have their separate building, and which is great. It's only been 6 years since we built that building, and really the community stepped up and helped us with that. And the fundraising that came in, and we were able to move into about a $7 million building at the time, 30,000 square feet for the women and children. Crazy thing is, what are we talking about right now?
It's like we said, it's full.
Yeah, and it filled up quickly. So right now we have a need that we're going to do an expansion on that building. You talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's one of those, in order to be that beacon into the community, we got to have room to bring people in. As you say, the hook is a place to sleep, a meal, a hot shower, somewhere safe. So in this area here with the women's and children's in Owen's house, we need a little bit more capacity.
Yeah.
So we need to expand a couple of more dorms to be able to get people in. In turn, that also means that the side that we use for our recovery program needs expansion as well.
Yeah.
So it's again, I say, it's not that we are changing lives, but we help facilitate the change in lives. And
right.
Jesus is doing all the work through the staff, through the volunteers that come, serving meals and helping to organize and run agape shops, through customers at thrift stores. That all goes back to feed ministry opportunities that we're able to facilitate change just through the power of Christ. Yeah. If we don't have room to get people in, we're limited as to what we can do.
Yeah, and that expansion is going to double the women's capacity and the women and children's side. And we're doing some rehab on the men's side as well, and that's going to give us some more capacity over here. But it reminds me of a story of your dad. We were walking on the old campus, and back then I think we were serving about 100,000 meals, and now we serve over 400,000 meals. And we were doing an expansion on the back building. It used to be our thrift store, and your dad was walking through it with me, and he was kind of seeing what my dreams were for that old building. And I said, well, I'd really like to have this be an area that we can have emergency shelter for men. And he said, well, I think that's a good idea. And he looked at me and says, Keith, I see your goals and you're in a growth mode. And he said, at what point do you think the mission will be big enough? And I said, well, when we take care of all the need. And your dad got what I was meaning is that we're going to try to continue to meet the need. We work with other partners in the community as well that do a great job with what they do as well. But we're the main source for the homeless to be able to find a place to stay, and then our programs beyond that. But he got a smile on his face when I was showing him that, and then he said, well, I got it, so we'll keep growing as long as we need to grow. And I said, that's the case. So I love that he got what I was saying because, he was a good businessman. He's like, where's our top level and where are we going to be, where we cap out? And as long as the community continues to support us, and I know that we're sharing God's word, I think God's going to continue to bless us to grow to meet those needs. So, and we have a capital campaign that's going to be going on with that. We haven't really announced it publicly, but we're going over the next year to 3 years, we're going to have pledges come in for that capital campaign to expand the building that we just built and then do some work on our campus here for the men as well.
And I'd like to just add, North Alabama, the Tennessee Valley area is absolutely a generous community.
Yeah.
They have supported the mission. Like I say, we're close to 50 years. They've supported us through tough times, as well as the good times. They do it financially. They do it with volunteers. There's people that also have a passion and a heart for helping people to have an opportunity for a lasting change in their life.
Yeah.
And so I'm very proud of the donors, the people that support and assist us, because we can't do it on our own. I mean, this is entirely too big now to think that it's just a small. It's not a mom and pop organization.
Well, back when I was talking to your dad about that building, the budget back then maybe was $800,000 to $1 million, and now it takes us about $11 million to run the mission. 140 staff members, and like I said, we're taking care of 310 to 350 people a night here now, and back then maybe it was 100 a night. And so it's amazing to see that the community, as you said, steps up on each phase, because we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for the community and shopping at our stores or donating to the stores or giving here financially to the mission or volunteering. And I even say the ones who can't do any of that are praying for the mission.
Absolutely.
Because I truly think that prayer moves mountains, and I think a lot of mountains have been moved through the years that the mission's been here. So you've worked with me, you were on the board before, you're a donor. now you're on the board again. And
You just don't know how to get rid of me. That's what it is.
but the amazing thing is how God has used the talents that you have to really help the mission and help me through the years. You're currently working with me on the building that we're going to be doing as a capital campaign, and you were the one that helped me during the process of the last time that we did Owen's house. And you really have a knack for that. You go over the blueprints, you know, really the building inside and out. So us working with the contractors and the architects is going to be nice and smooth because I've got you helping me again. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I went to school to be an engineer. I always say I'm a good engineer, not one of the bad ones. But I have the engineering mentality. So, I get down into the weeds and I look at things. So, yes, when you hit your blueprints, I think you came in, I was using different color highlighters, tracing out all the HVAC and some of the electrical systems just to make sure I understood how this building was put together. But, it's a lot of those details as to how I work. So whatever I do to work on, whether it's, on the finance committee or anything else, I have that mentality. I think that's the way that God wired my brain to work. So I use it, to try to do things, and hopefully it's at the end result, it's pleasing to God. But it's fun. You get to do these things, and we had lots of opportunity as we were building Owen's house that we get to go through there and just have quiet times of prayer. That this is just bricks and mortar. The building itself does nothing to change a person's life. That it's Jesus Christ. It's the power of God. It's His grace and mercy that is going to be shown in this facility. And so that's the great thing in putting the focus there. Us as staff members at the time getting to go through and pray over the different areas and things that were going to go on, that we knew we had beds where moms and kids were going to sleep, and ladies that were homeless, people on a program that are struggling with the difficulties of addiction, to get to go and just lift them up, saying that we just want God's presence to be felt in all areas of this facility. It is just the best thing out of all of it.
Well, and those years that you worked here were a blessing for me personally, because you were really like an assistant. You're the operations guy over all the things.
You can be honest and say I annoyed you as well. So.
Well, listen, God puts people in places to iron sharpens iron, right? I truly believe in that. But most of your time has not been a paid employee. Most of your time has been volunteering, and I actually, standing back and looking at it, I think you get more joy out of the volunteering than you ever did when you were, a staff member.
Being on the staff here was difficult because you are on that frontline battle. Spiritual warfare is absolutely real.
Yeah.
Whether it's seeing the issues that clients at the mission, whether they're just homeless transient that are going in and out, and seeing the cycle of when they come in, just staggering that they're so intoxicated they can barely walk, but we still let them in, try to get them strong enough and cleaned up and fed, only to see them go right back out to do it again. Or like we talked about on the program side of trying to get pieces put together in their life again. But this is a business as well. So that as a business, it has to operate with a business mentality, which means that there's workings between staffs, departments, goals, and there are things that all those moving pieces have to come together and work right. I always say that I know God's involved in it because lives are changed in spite of those flawed individuals of us that are trying to guide and help and do. God shows up and still does. So I think that's just more testimony to Him.
So a little bit about you. I know you. I've known you long enough that you don't like talking about you, but part of this interview is about talking about you too. So for people out there that don't know Kirk Thompson, you took over as president of your company, your dad's company, at a young age. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, my brother Kyle is 9 years older than I, and Dad had the plan. I had more of, I'd say, the business sense to talk with salesmen and accountants. Kyle is great at the troubleshooting and working in the maintenance and keeping the production rolling. So it was a good fit, but that meant that I had to be the one to take Dad's place in the front office.
Yeah.
Kyle really got the fun job in the back. But we worked well together. Kyle and I, still to this day, just work extremely well together. Those are times, and it's always been and a consistent prayer of mine that I always ask God for wisdom, because being young and in business, I needed guidance. I didn't know a lot of what I was doing a lot of the time, so I went to the school of hard knocks. So I always had to trust God, put faith in Him, ask for wisdom, discernment, guidance in whatever I've done. And that's still true to this day, just to want to be an instrument of God. Whether or not I got to be a staff here, as continued as the board, just to be able to offer wisdom and guidance, as God would give me. So it did an awful lot to, I had to, I say grow up quick, even though I wasn't that young, but I had to work with other people that were older than me, some people that knew more than me.
And family members too.
Family members. I mean, it was a family business. So that was a challenge, but I think that was just God refining me and working me into the shape that He needed me, and He's still not done yet.
Yeah. You had that business, and at the time, I think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, when I was interviewing your dad, he said it had about 30 to 40% of the market for CPVC.
Granted, it's been years to be able to say exact numbers. We did our best to make quality product, and I think our name was recognized as quality in the marketplace. So people would want our product as a preference, but ultimately, price was an issue as well. If somebody got too big of a discount, they'd take the cheaper one. But that was always our pattern, is to make quality products, so that way it worked well for the installers, the plumbers, when they were using it.
I talked to your dad a couple years after I had bought my house. I had to tear down one of the walls, and I went and tore it down, and I looked inside, and there was this Thompson Gold on the inside. And I said, I think that's your pipe on the inside. And he, of course, your dad, he said, yeah, we sold all over the place. And so even the house that I have has Thompson in it. And so far my pipes haven't broken. So
I'm glad to hear it.
So what are a couple things about Kirk Thompson that people might not know, or something that you'd want to share about?
Well,
I know you're not wanting to talk about yourself.
But no, I'm not. I prefer to be the face in the crowd. So even getting me here to this point is a big step. Married to Christy, wonderful wife, absolutely blessing. 2 wonderful daughters, Chelsea and Katie. They'll be 27 years old this year. So that's where the gray hairs come from.
I just a side note on that. I remember when you brought them down, they were like 8 years old, to volunteer at the mission the one time, and one had brought a collection that she had
collected
done.
money, yes.
And they're 27. That's crazy. That I think about them being 20 years ago, 8 years old or 7 years old.
I know. They've grown up fast, and they've grown up well. And then on top of that, also now have he's a 9-year-old Maverick. So I still get to play with toys and be a kid at home. So that's
he keeps you on the edge of your seat.
I say it's going to turn my gray hair back brown, but it hasn't yet.
So what's I know a fact about you that I know you like Star Wars and Star Trek and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I have probably wasted more money on hobbies and collections than what I'd care to talk about. But, it was fun. I collected comic books and paraphernalia for a long time. And it's neat. The comic books back in those days were fun. You always had the clear thing of the good guy versus the bad guy. You always see the good guy win. So those were always just enjoyable stories. Go back and look at them now and realize, it's like soap operas for kids, because there's never an end to it. There's always another bad guy and another bit of drama that always comes forward. So it's funny, but it's been fun to play with.
Yeah, I've seen your collection. I love it because it's category, cataloged and everything.
That's the engineer in me.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, you do it right. You organize them, protect them, and etc.
Well, and you did it for fun. You weren't really doing it as a collection. You did it to
No,
read them.
yeah, I bought the ones that I wanted to read.
Yeah.
I never bought ones that I thought would ever be worth money.
Yeah.
And that shows because all the ones I have are probably not worth that much money.
Yeah, because you read them. Yeah.
It's not an investment scheme or
Yeah.
anything of that nature.
So, who is somebody that you look to in your life that inspired you to be Kirk Thompson the way you are today?
But, Dad was always the biggest influence.
Yeah.
Seeing the way that he would sit at home, he'd study and read the Bible and write notes in it. Just always a man of faith. He stepped out of comfort zones. He'd come down to the rescue mission and lead the praise and worship to sing. Dad doesn't have musical ability. He always joked that he failed the spoon test in school, where you're supposed to have 2 spoons and click to the beat.
Yeah.
He's just tapping on everything all around, and the teacher has to come by and take the spoons away.
Yeah.
So, but he would do that.
Yeah.
It was whatever the need was at the rescue mission. He would go down early for that service, and then still come to church right after that to be part of church with the family.
Yeah. He inspired a lot of folks, me being one of them as well. And your mom too. I went to church with your mom and dad, and I sat in many Sunday school classes. And your dad was not just a good businessman, but a good Christian man who studied the Word and loved the Lord. And you could see it just trickle down through his family that he wanted to make sure that he did things right, but he was doing things in a Christian manner, which I always loved. What do you think, as you've been as a donor and a volunteer and a board member and a staff member at the mission, maybe the biggest challenges going forward for the mission into the future?
Well, I hate to come back to the dollar side of things. It always ends up being on the finance side.
Yeah.
The economy has been turbulent the last couple of years, and so we're always dependent upon the donations that we get in order to be able to operate. So that is always the challenge in going forward and continuing to be those good stewards. Huntsville, as we have talked many times, is a growing city. They talk about it as one of the number 1 places to live in America, and growing to be one of the up and coming, or the largest in the state.
Yeah.
That brings in a whole different need of people. They see this as an area of opportunity. So between conditions of tough economy and people not being able to meet rent and people with an influx, the need for the rescue mission has continued to grow.
Yeah.
So it's that challenge I think we're going to have to be able to continue to find ways to meet those needs. So that way we don't miss these opportunities in sharing the gospel. So we will have to be creative as to how that is in going forward as well.
Yeah, the words of your dad still ring in my ear of how much is too much, or how big is too big, or I think you're on the same thing, that we continue to grow to meet the need of what God provides, right? As you've looked at the homeless in the area and maybe throughout the country, what do you think the challenges are going forward for how we deal with homelessness as a culture, and how do we deal with folks that are in need, because it doesn't seem to be going away. I remember back in 2005 they did this 2020 government study that they were we're going to end homelessness by 2020. Well, it's 2024 and there's more homelessness now than there was back in 2005. So what are your thoughts on like the overall picture of how we help folks and what the need is there?
I think the dynamic of homelessness is somewhat changing on us as well, because homeless are aging, they're getting older.
Yeah.
And so there is that need for it's seniors that end up being homeless that we have not typically seen before.
Yeah.
The other flip side, it's like the other end of the spectrum, women with children. So when you're playing with both sides of this on that spectrum and everything in the middle, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, the challenges for us is going to have to be trying to work each one of those as a separate piece to find the right thing to be able to offer to create the lasting changes.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's back to the wisdom and guidance from God and knowing how to do this. We know, I think, to be realistic, we're not going to end every case of homelessness that comes in here. There are some that are just going to continue to choose to live that way. There's a great many that have mental health issues that cannot function right, and so their solution is that they're self-medicating through drugs or alcohol to try to help correct chemical imbalances that they have. And that's a challenge to try to get them off the whatever drugs and alcohol that they've done, the damage that they've done to their bodies, and then try to help them find the right path through mental health assistance for the proper medication so that they can see and think clearly.
Yeah.
Those are some of the biggest challenges because it takes an awful lot of investment and a lot of time to break down those barriers for people to understand.
Yeah. In the early 90s when I first started in rescue work, it was crack cocaine and things like that. And we still have that. And now it's the opioids and, how quickly people are addicted to that and how young the folks are coming. But I agree with you. I think they say every week 50,000 people turn 65 years old in the United States. Well, what happens is our homeless population is doing the same thing. Those folks are turning 65 at the same rate. And so we have the younger folks, the moms and kids, and then those who are getting addicted young. And then we have those folks that are getting older. And, I've talked to the board about this, that we're looking at maybe doing some kind of elderly care at some point for homeless. Some other things we're thinking about doing, maybe doing a camp at some point for the kids, or maybe a farm ministry or satellite ministries, all things that we're thinking about for the future. Out of those future things, what's the one that excites you the most, the things that we've talked about in the past?
Well, the elderly care, I think, is the one that I see as that biggest need.
Yeah.
It is a sad thing to realize that someone here that is elderly and doesn't have some sort of family member support to be with them in these days where they're not able to care for themselves.
Yeah.
And they're homeless. They don't have anywhere to go. They need support. They need love poured on them to guide them through these golden senior years at that time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one that just really pulls at my heart as being something that needs attention. Not to say any of the other ideas are bad.
No, sure.
Because there's, that's part of that creativity and finding what works, because there's different areas to try to help people break that cycle and have places to be able to come that they feel welcome and get the opportunity again of hearing the gospel.
So do you think that your dad thought when he was serving sandwiches out of the back of his car that we'd be sitting here today in a campus that's almost 18 acres and we're taking care of 350 people a night? Do you ever think that he had that thought in his mind?
I'm pretty sure Dad would absolutely say no. He had no idea, but he'd humbly say he wouldn't be surprised as to what God does and will do at the rescue mission.
And really the faith of that day of saying, well, I don't really see the homeless, and then going out and seeing them, and then coming alongside Bobby LaCroix at the time, who was the founding director, really changed the city of Huntsville. I mean, I look at it today and say, what would have happened if that hadn't happened? And there was no rescue mission here in Huntsville taking care of folks. And amazing that the faith of those two men and then their families along with it really changed the face of the city. When I talk to the mayors and to the city councilmen and things, they're always like, man, thank God we have the Downtown Rescue Mission, because if we didn't have the mission, how many more folks would be on the street? I mean, could you imagine right now if the mission wasn't here, 350 more people being on the street? I mean, it boggles my mind. So I always thanked your dad for having that step of faith back then. And I know, like you said, he was a good man, just wanted to do what was right. And at that time, doing what was right, was doing it for the least of these. And we read in Matthew 25, it talks about taking care of those who are in need. And it says, when you do it to the least of these, you've done it to me. And I think that's what your dad and your family has done through the years. And I just thank you so much, from my heart to your family and to you as my friend, of always being faithful in that goal of helping those who are in need, and doing what the Bible tells us to do to help those who might not be able to help themselves. So I just thank you, Kirk, for being here today. Do you have any last thoughts before we go?
No, I've said more than what I really needed to say. It's an honor to get to be here. It's a pleasure to get to help out with the mission and the small things that I do to contribute and be a part of. I'm just thrilled at seeing all the growth and things that God has done through this place, and I'm excited to see what He holds for the next 50 years.
I am too. Well, if you guys only knew out there that Kirk does not do interviews like this often. So I do appreciate Kirk coming down and taking the time today to meet with us about Stories of Hope, and really how the Stories of Hope with the rescue mission here at the Downtown Rescue Mission, all these stories, not just hundreds, but thousands of lives have been changed because God had a place for them to go. This isn't our mission. It's not my mission, not your dad's mission. But this is God's mission that He's had through the years, where these doors are open to anybody that wants to come in and find a different path in their life. And just thank you and your family for the years that you've supported and donated and volunteered and board membered and worked. And I'm trying to figure out another job title for you through these. So, but again, thank you so much, and appreciate all that you've done through these years. This has been another Stories of Hope with the Downtown Rescue Mission. I'm Keith Overholt, President and CEO. Thank you for joining us today.